Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. Excited, as always, to be here. And, I am here in the moment, in the present. And we've all heard the phrase, live in the now. Be present. Don't borrow worry from tomorrow. Don't dwell in the past. Probably heard them over and over and over again. My mom also loved to say, this too shall pass. It was one of her favorite phrases. And with it being a year since she passed, a lot of mom's phrases just really seem to be coming up. But really, when people talk about living in the now and being present and, don't borrow worry from the future, how do you actually do that? I know I've read tons of books on the topics. I've actually spoken on the topic when I've done my keynote speeches. But really, there is no one right way of doing it. Perspectives can change based on how material is presented, whether you are ready to hear whatever that message may be. And my friend Jackie Lappin recommended that I interview my guest that I have on the show today, Kevin Murphy, the author of The 3 Rooms, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And when Jackie says to me, Laura, you might want to consider interviewing this person, I always take that highly, highly rated because she's never given me bad advice. So I'm honored to have Kevin on the show today because his book is a different way at looking at that whole idea of being in the present. And he does it with this idea of 3 rooms, the past room, the future room, and the present room. So Kevin, really, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Laura, for having me on. I'm excited to be here. Yeah,
and we do have some commonalities with the Long Island, New York thing, which is a lot of fun reading through the book on, do I know that person? He's referencing in there. You came from a Wall Street background. I mean, you were a Wall Street managing director. You're even in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. You're raising awareness for opioid and drug epidemic research to raise awareness of it. You're a top person at Citigroup, 33-year career, talking high profile business there. In the options trading world, why a book about being present?
Well, first, that's a really good question, and I have to say, most people, when I said that I was stepping away to write a book, I think they were expecting an option strategy book or kind of a Wall Street tell-all book, and so all I can say is I did not intentionally think, let me write a book and what should it be about. I think that over time, certainly over the last 20-plus years, through different things and challenges in my life, I started to look within for more answers, and I started to kind of devour, a lot of books in the, in the consciousness-minded genre. And after a while, it was, maybe, call it 3-4 years ago, I just started getting a premonition that I was going to write a book, and I didn't know what it was about. But then I kept getting this image of 3 doors, and one was the past, and one was the present, and one was the future. And eventually, those 3 doors turned into 3 rooms because I just kept describing the place beyond the doors where our thoughts go. And that's, so kind of the premise of the book. And I think, the premise also might have come from the fact that I was always curious as to why certain people could be so happy even though it seemed like they had so little. And other people seemed like they had so much in terms of possessions, and they just seemed so miserable or just unhappy. And it seemed like it can't be about what you have. And ultimately, the premise of the 3 rooms is just that, is that our experience of life is not based on what we have or possessions or what we do for a living. It's based on what we think, and our thoughts can only be in one of 3 places. They can be in the past or the past room. They can be in the future or the future room. They can be in the present or the present room. And whichever room your thoughts are in determines your experience of life in that moment. Because of course, our thoughts can go back and forth to the past and in the future, but the key is to know which room your thoughts are in. And in order to do that, you just need to observe your thoughts. And it is that active observation separates your awareness from your thoughts, so you're no longer at the effect of them. And that awareness is our consciousness, or that divine consciousness that all the mystics talked about, and that's what we want to tap into.
I've had a number of guests on my show that talk about controlling your thoughts, changing your thoughts, having this whole idea of your thoughts can control everything about your success, your failure, your health, your wealth, all of that stuff. What's intriguing to me in your book was changing it from sort of a nebulous concept of the past, present, and future, right? Which it's kind of concrete, right? Past is past, future is future. But you gave it a room. And to me, that was intriguing because a room has 4 walls, a ceiling, a floor, and a door, right? So it has boundaries. It has definition to it, which when something has definition to it, to me, it's easier to question it. Because you can say, what makes that wall be a wall? Why can't it be the floor? Why can't it be the ceiling? So this concept of rooms intrigues me. Can you explain to my listeners what the difference is in your definition of the past room, present room, and future room, please?
Sure, and I think it's a great question, and I think it all has to do with emotions, and how you feel. Because people say, well, you have to, look to the, look back at the past, and we learn from the past, so you can't always be in the present. And we have to plan for the future, so our thoughts have to go into the future. So again, we can't always be in the present. But it's really all about how we feel. So when I look at the past room, I'm looking at when we start to think of something in the past that causes us to feel negative emotions. So it's recalling, past experiences that our perception of that experience, or what happened, or what someone said, or what someone did, or what we didn't do, it's causing feelings of anger or resentment, or sometimes guilt, because we know other people can make us feel guilty, but we can be brutal on ourselves as far as things that we should have done. And so it's looking to the past as something that has already happened and is causing negative emotions. And over time, the more we keep focusing on that, we can kind of get stuck there and stuck in those negative emotions. And just like in the future, we can look to the future and we can worry about what's going to happen, or we can think about things that we don't have now and be concerned about the future, and it causes negative emotions like stress and anxiety. And we know that can feed on itself, and people can live in stress for a long time, and it's causing more and more illnesses in this country today. And it's people just constantly thinking about something in the future, thinking of worst case scenarios, and it's the emotions that are tied to that. And meanwhile, in the present room, it's thinking about thoughts of appreciation, of gratitude. It's not thinking about right now, well, I don't have what I want right now. I want a new car, but I'm driving this old, junky car, and so some people say, well, I'm trying to be in the present, but I don't like the present now. I don't like where I am. And then you're not going to enjoy the present moment. But to me, that's not even being in the present moment, because you're not feeling positive emotions. If you're not liking the present moment, it's the way you're interpreting or you're perceiving where you are in your life right now. So, the tagline of the book is, change your thoughts, change your life. It's really about change your emotions, and you change your life. And our thoughts have the biggest effect on our emotions. And so when going to the, recalling positive past experiences that make you feel good, you're doing that right now, and that's good. Allow yourself to feel good. Think about nice things from the past. Imagining a future of things that you would like to have in the future, and feeling the joy of having them, and what would that be like. Those are wonderful things. But you're doing it right now, and you're experiencing it and showing appreciation now. So that's how I look at the 3 rooms. And it's hard to say, monitor your thoughts and always know which room your thoughts are in, because we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and try to monitor all of those and constantly put them in a different room is tough. But it is easier to put them in one of 3 buckets, or behind one of 3 doors, than it is to just totally monitor 60 or 70,000. but you always know which room you're in by how you feel. And if you're feeling positive emotions, you have to be in the present, because it's your thoughts that pull you out.
So you can't feel positive and be thinking positively about the future room? Only negativity can be in the future room?
Correct, because when you're thinking positive about the future, you're doing it right now.
Okay. All right, wait, stop.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because that was kind of interesting to me. It gave me a little bit of goosebumps and an aha. So the difference with positive thoughts in the present, so you're saying you can only have positive thoughts if you are in the moment, if you're in the here and now. As soon as you start to have a less than positive thought, you're either in the future or the past. Is that correct?
Correct. And instead of, you can think about a positive thought or a negative thought, but I think of it as just a thought.
Okay.
That leads you to have a negative emotion or a positive emotion.
Gotcha.
So what is the thought? How is the thought making you feel? And so if the thought is causing a negative emotion, by definition, you can't be in the present room. Because think of it from a couple of different ways, but just more from a spiritual standpoint, think of being in the present. You're aligned with your own soul, your higher self, your inner being, whatever you want to call that. That's really where we want to be. That's that, and once again, that awareness, that consciousness, that divine consciousness that we all share, we want to tap into that. And that's always right here in the present. Your soul is always waiting in the present room. If you're looking at something in the past and it's causing negative emotions, by definition, you are just not looking at that the same way your own soul is looking at it, your own higher self. If you're still mad at someone, a coworker yesterday, for saying something to someone else, and they tried to blame something on you, that a project didn't get done, and you see them the next morning and you're still mad at them, you have all these negative emotions, and you have to see this person each day, and you're still seething. Well, your own soul is not seething at that person. Your own soul has already moved on. Your own soul is like, what's up, what's next? They're not blaming them, they're not condemning them, but you are. And you keep going back to what happened, how it made you feel, and every time you do, you're reliving those negative emotions.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go into our first commercial break. Please don't have any negative emotions about that, everybody. It pays the bills around here, keeps the lights on, and, there's some pretty cool stuff on our commercials. So we'll be right back with more from Kevin Murphy, talking about how you can change your thoughts, change your life with the 3 rooms. Kevin, you were talking about thoughts and feelings and being stuck in the past, and it's interesting because when I was reading the book, there is a story on page 214 in the book where you talked about negative energy, and it's what you were just talking about before the break. And it reminded me of after my divorce in 2013 or 14, whatever it was, I don't even remember anymore, which says a lot. It's a big step. I was really annoyed because my ex-husband took the 6-foot ladder. Now, I still had an 8-foot ladder and a bunch of step ladders and a 3-foot ladder as well, but the 6-foot ladder was gone. And every single time I went into the garage to get the 6-foot ladder and it wasn't there, it would just feed. It would feed the angry wolf inside of me, and it would just take me down. And something happened July 4th weekend this year. I was with my friend in Home Depot. I had to buy something for a handyman to come do something. And all of a sudden I said, I need to buy a 6-foot ladder. And they didn't have any on sale. I figured they would. So I went to Lowe's and I got a 6-foot ladder for $39.99. And something completely shifted for me. In that moment, I became what, according to your book, would be in the present room now, instead of all of that negative energy from the past room. It just completely dissipated from my being. And I felt like I moved forward from that. Is that what you were trying to describe?
That's exactly it. It can be a thought as simple as a ladder. But that thought and that ladder is an image that reminds you of something else. in the case of a divorce and the splitting of properties or things like that, and it causes a negative emotion. And every time you think of that thought, or every time you see a ladder, it reminds you that. It takes you back there to those negative emotions. So the first key is to be aware that you keep feeling that negative emotion. That means you're out of the present room. Why am I feeling that negative emotion? Oh, it's because I keep looking back. Okay, I keep going back into the past room. And every time you do that, you say, well, I don't want to come here anymore. I'm feeling negative. I want to feel positive. How can I feel positive? Now, it happened to be that that came about, you ended up getting the ladder. Perhaps you could have done that sooner, saying, I keep thinking about this ladder. It keeps making me feel bad. How can I get rid of that negative emotion? I'm just going to get a new ladder, and now it's not going to bother me anymore. But over time, things happen over time, and you end up getting a new ladder. Now it doesn't bother you. It could have been something else as far as just letting it go. Especially if it's what someone has done, and we know it's about forgiveness, right? That forgiveness is one of the ways we can also let go of negative emotions of anger or resentment or things and come back into the present realm. Unfortunately, for most of us, we have degrees of forgiveness. How often you say, you hear people say, I'm a forgiving person, but, not for that, or they crossed the line. And you have to ask yourself, what line? There's no line of forgiveness. Because if you really want to look at forgiveness, look at people who have really suffered tragedies, and they've come out and they've truly forgiven somebody for that, and it doesn't let that other person off the hook. It lets you off the hook, and now you free yourself to come back into the present room. You're no longer having all those different negative emotions. So it's getting stuck in the past room. Keep reliving those negative emotions. You want to say, if you're aware of it, you can start to do things to move back into the present room. One is forgiveness. Two is to say, what is it that's causing that? And it's something as simply as getting a new ladder. That's exactly it. Now you can think of every time you see a ladder, it doesn't bring up those negative emotions. It brings up almost a smile, like, I don't have to worry about the 6-foot ladder anymore. I got one. It can be that simple.
Yeah, it really became that simple, and I considered myself a relatively enlightened person. I teach on a lot of these things as well, but I was so stuck, I couldn't see how stuck I was over something as simple as a ladder. So I started not doing stuff around the house that needed the 6-foot ladder because the 8-foot ladder was just too big and too heavy, and the 3-foot ladder wasn't tall enough to get to. And then it seemed like as soon as I got the ladder, it's like, oh, I can change that light bulb. Oh, I can do this. And it was just like, oh, yeah, it's just ease again.
It's a wonderful thing.
So being in the present room is about ease. Yes? No? Maybe?
100%. And that's, if you think about that, being in the present room is when you're in touch with your own emotions, when you're feeling love, appreciation, gratitude, that feeling of homeostasis, within the body, that in your internal thermostat, everything's working easily, everything's clicking. And anytime we look into now, once again, you can look back into the past, recall positive past experiences. You remember that first kiss, you remember that first date, or you remember, passing that test, and you go, or getting that job, and you go, wow, I remember that. That's okay. It's okay to, look back at things and make you feel good, because you're feeling good right now. But if anything, that thermometer is how you feel. And anything that makes you feel, looking into the past, or especially in the future. And I think in today's day and age, it's really about the stress in the future. Because we are at an interesting time in our history, where many people are looking within to find peace. And that feeling of harmony or unity, with others. And yet, when you look around, you still see so many people in stress. Struggling with job pressures or addiction, and feelings of isolation. And when you look at everything that's going on, even in the political world, where, so many people are taking sides on all these different issues, but they're no longer listening to the other side's point of view. So there's a lot more disharmony than harmony, and that shouldn't be the case. And it comes back to what you were just saying. It's about ease. And if you're not feeling ease, then you're not in alignment with who you really are, your own higher self, your own soul. And the future and the stress is really probably one of the biggest challenges, in our society today.
And it's not that idea that you have to go outside your comfort zone. Brandon Webb has been a frequent guest on my show, and he, with John David Mann, wrote a book called Mastering Fear. And he goes, you can't master fear by, being so far outside your comfort zone. You need to take baby steps to get your body used to that stretch, to overcome whatever fear may be coming from your future room, to stay in the present. You can't just bash at it. You have to be gentle with it. And I think that's some of what you're saying, Kevin. Yes? No?
Yes, and you're right on the money when you talk about fear, because when I talk about negative emotions and positive emotions, so negative emotions being in either the past or the future room, and positive emotions being in the present room, we're really talking about only two types of emotions: love-based emotions or fear-based emotions. And in the past or future room, they're just fear-based emotions. Anger, resentment, guilt, all of those are derivatives of fear.
Okay,
Stress,
and hold that, because we're going to tease people with that, because we have to go to the national news. Please, everybody, don't be in fear when you hear the national news. If you're on the podcast, you get to skip it. So stay in the present room, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us, I am here with Kevin Murphy, author of The 3 Rooms, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. He is a former Wall Street managing director, not the guy you would think of who would say in his book he's a mystic. Not what you would normally think of when you think of somebody who really beautifully put this whole concept of, how do you know if you're in the present? How do you know if you're in the future room or the past room? So before the break, Kevin, you were talking about how you know which room you're in and how you can shift out of it. So let's take that to the next level. You talked about feelings. You talked about emotions. What are some of the questions that my listeners should be asking themselves to help them determine if they are in the past room?
Well, once again, it's really about awareness, and so it's how do I feel? And when you're thinking about how do I feel, you can say, where are my thoughts? That iconic question of who am I? When people say look deep within, they're really asking, who am I? That person on the inside that I'm trying to get in touch with. But the question of where am I simply means where are my thoughts? And or which room am I in? And you can tell that by how you feel. But the simple asking and answering of the one question, and you can ask it all day long: where am I? Not where your physical body is, because you always know where your physical body is. Look down at your feet, and they'll tell you where your physical body is. But where am I? Meaning, where are my thoughts? And where are my emotions? How am I feeling right now? When you ask that question, just to be able to answer that, by definition, you have to be aware of what you're thinking. And so you have already separated your awareness from your thoughts, or you're conscious of your thoughts. And that's why we talk about metacognition, being, thinking about your thoughts. And so you can't be, let's say, move out of the past room with negative emotions unless you know you're there. And people get stuck there. And we know people that just always seem angry. They're always, they're just mad at something, or they seem to be resentful. And likewise, we know people that are constantly worrying about the future. And they're always, what about this, and what about that, and we shouldn't do this, and this might happen. And they're constantly worrying and stress, and that just keeps building. And if you're not aware of that, that just kind of becomes your MO, then those negative emotions just keep staying within you. And our bodies are not meant to constantly deal with all those negative emotions, all of that stress. And that's when you look at the long-term chronic illnesses in this country today, so much of it is caused by stress. So if you're aware of that you're not feeling positive emotions, or if you're aware that you're thinking about something that's causing a negative emotion, at least you can then start to say, now I know I'm in the wrong room. I simply will want to come back into the present room.
Is it ever okay to visit the past or future rooms?
Of course it is. And it's okay. We can learn from the past. We can recall positive past experiences, and we can plan for the future. But we can do it right now. And the difference between stressing about the future and creating our future is the difference of how we define ourselves. If we define ourselves from being in contact with our own higher self, who's saying, "You are wonderful, you are amazing," and I am happy, I am healthy. If we start from that place, we can imagine a future that we would like. But when we listen to other people and they say, you're not going to be able to do that, or you're not good enough for that, and you start saying to yourself, I know I'm not going to be able to do that, I'm not good enough, I am not. The more you say, I am not, now you're causing stress when you're looking into the future. Because in the future room, you're looking at what is, and you're thinking about what you want. And by definition, you don't have it yet. And you're thinking, I don't have this, I'm not going to be able to get this. And you think about all the reasons why you're not going to be able to do it. Causes constant stress. But in the present room, if you're thinking, I am happy, I am healthy, and now you're envisioning that. You're doing it right now, and you're envisioning what it would be like to be happy, to be healthy, to get that job. And now you're looking from that place as if it's already happened. You are creating your future, but you're doing it right now. You're in the present room, you're aligned with your own source, and you're using your imagination. You're visualizing things of what you want, and in the present room, you're thinking, what can be? And that's the thought, and that's the question. What can be? Not why I can't do something, or looking at what is, and not having what I want, but what can be? That's the real question.
So what can be? It's interesting to me because I help people think up. When I work with my clients, I help them as somebody described it the other day, Lori, you help us think up and keep thinking of possibilities and start thinking more positively about what can be and where we should be moving forward. Yet it sounds simple when you say it, Kevin, but so many people, my listeners, I hear this from them all the time, they have trouble staying in that space. And in your book you talk about, and what we've talked about in the interview so far, is having that awareness of where your thoughts are. Yet it's so difficult for people to stay in that present room and stay in there. Why do you think we have such difficulty staying in a place of ease?
Well, it's because we let everything we see and hear in the physical world affect how we feel. Instead of starting with how we feel inside and letting that affect everything we see and hear. Because even think more and more people are using meditation. And in the mornings, they may meditate. They may take 20 minutes. I mean, some people say, well, I've tried meditation. It doesn't work for me. I think it's just because you have to give it a little bit of time. But what happens a lot is even when they get centered and now they feel all peaceful and now they've meditated, they feel relaxed, they're in the present room, they get in their car, they start driving to work, somebody cuts them off, yells at them, you yell back, you spilt your coffee on your lap, and now all of a sudden you're already worked up. And now you're pulled out of it. And then you get to work and you see the person who kind of did something that you perceived as negative to you yesterday, and now all of a sudden, again, all these kind of negative emotions. Or you see that car you want and someone else is driving it, and I'm not going to be able to do that. Now your mind starts going on that, and you start feeling stress. So all the things that we see and hear all through the day constantly pull us out of the present room. And there's triggers that we see all day long, like what you were talking about, the ladder. It's just a trigger that all of a sudden, boom, it's a negative emotion. I can't believe this. And so what we need triggers, or reminders all through the day to bring us back into the present room, to get back into alignment with it. And so one is just the awareness of where I am. So if all day long you just say, okay, where am I? Which room am I in? Based on how I feel. And any time you know during the day that you're not feeling right, just say, I'm in the wrong room. I got to start to come back. So it's where am I, and where are my thoughts, and how am I feeling? And then how do you stay in the present room throughout the day? I think the best way to get into the present room in the morning is through meditation, because it is the absence of thoughts that brings you into the present, and that's when meditation helps. But then the best way to stay in the present room throughout the day is thoughts of appreciation and gratitude. Those keep you there. So you just, and we hear it all the time, and people know it. Like, I know gratitude. Yeah, you got to be appreciative. But really appreciating everything through the day, looking for things to be appreciative of all day long really does help keep you in the present room. And so that's something where being aware of how you feel, being appreciative of little things, that can help keep you there. And again, when you start to think in the future, it is creating, that image of what you would like, where everyone can sit back and think about something that they would really like and just say, wow, wouldn't that be great to have? And it starts to give you a warm feeling. And what if you thought from the standpoint that you already have it? And that's so huge, because if we take that one word, already, instead of the word not, because we were talking about earlier, people say, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to do that. And that's how they define themselves, and they cut themselves off from their desires. But if you simply say, I already am happy, I already am healthy, now you're coming from the place of having it already, you achieve your desire, and you feel that. And it's powerful when you just say it, I already am. You go, whoa. You can feel it in your solar plexus. And you're coming from the place of it already having happened. And that's how we do create our future. It's not about not ever planning for the future, but it's imagining the future we want and then attracting the things into our lives from that perspective.
But it's doing it a little bit differently with the way you describe it in the book. It's not just imagining what we want in the future. It's knowing it's already there, it sounds like.
Correct. That's right. It's already happened. It's already, in the book I use the story of Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss had his children's book rejected 27 times before he was walking down the street one day. He bumped into an old friend who happened to be a publisher. His publisher said, give me your book, let me see, and I'll try to get it published. They get it published, and he changed the lives of millions of people. But now that's a true story. But think about Ted Gazelle or Dr. Seuss getting his book rejected 27 times. Think about what he had to believe in that. He had to have a vision that I am going to get this book published, because otherwise after the 4th time he got it rejected, or the 10th time he got his book rejected, he would have been saying, I'm never going to be an author. Who am I kidding? I can't write children's books. I got to go back to, flipping hamburgers or whatever I was doing. This is ridiculous. And he never would have persisted. But he kept persisting after 27 rejections. Now think of the day that he bumped into his buddy walking down the street. You've now had your book rejected 27 times. You see a friend coming up, and you go, I don't want to talk to him. He's going to ask how things are going. I'm going to say, well, I got my book rejected 27 times. How do you think I'm feeling? And instead he ducks into a doorway and lets his friend walk by because he doesn't feel like telling his friend how bad he's doing.
All right. And
how often does that happen?
It happens more often than you think, like commercials do. We'll be right back with more from Kevin Murphy after our last commercial break. Kevin, there is a story in your book on page 168 where you tell about an investment banker and a fisherman. It's an old story, And the fisherman seems totally happy, and the investment banker keeps saying, but if you work a little harder, you can get a bigger boat, you can do this, then you can run this bigger conglomerate, and then you can, at the end, you can end up retiring and having the life that he currently has. Why did you pick that story? And I paraphrased it, everybody. It's on page 167, page 168 of the book. And there's a lot of beautiful nuggets like that throughout this book. The 3 rooms, change your thoughts, change your life. Why that story? Why do you think it so perfectly encapsulates the idea of the 3 rooms?
Well, I think especially with the future room, we hear so much, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy when I make a lot of money. I'll be happy. I can't wait till I retire. I hear it all the time. 6 more years, I'm retiring. I can't wait. You can't wait for 6 more years. So it's I'll be happy when. And that story just encapsulates, be happy now. You don't have to wait. And this is all we have. Time isn't linear. It's always now. So to delay, to intentionally delay your happiness, and there's people say, well, the delayed gratification, you have to work for things. Having to work for things that you want in the future still does not mean that you can't be happy now. You can be joyful working now for things that you want, but appreciating everything you have. And so you're already there. We can be happy now. And I think that one of the single biggest messages, in the book is that we do have control over how we feel. And once again, it depends on whether we let what we see and hear in the physical world determine how we feel inside, or whether we let how we feel inside determine what we see and hear. And it's all about our awareness of thoughts and our awareness of our emotions. But be happy now. Don't be happy when something is going to take place.
So if you find your words saying things like, what if, what room does that put you in?
Well, it depends on kind of what you follow it with and how it makes you feel. What if I get in a car accident? What if I smash this car? What if I don't get past that test? What if I don't get this job? That's putting you right in the future room. That's causing stress and anxiety. But what if you said, and what if you said, wow, what if I got that job and I was able to travel around the country and meet new people and share my ideas? That would be incredible. I would love that. Well, that's a what, and it's making you really feel great. So if you're going to say what if, think of something that's positive and say, what if this, and use your imagination to think of that what if of something you really wanted, and now think of how it would feel if you had that already, and now you are totally centered in the present. Because as soon as you say what if and imagine something to be true, you have created a vibrational reality for that image. And that is sitting there waiting for you, because every thought we have is just a vibration that is stored as energy in this field of potential probabilities. And they're just waiting to manifest. And so think about positive things. Think about those what-if scenarios that really make you feel good. And that idea, that inspired idea, is waiting for you to enable it to be fulfilled.
I've been watching Stargate Atlantis reruns. Have you ever watched that show?
I have not.
There is a character, Dr. McKay, and he's a very central character to the show. He's the scientist who can fix everything, but in the course of whatever crisis happens, he immediately goes, but we could die, we could this, we could that, if it breaks, I could blow it up, blah, blah, blah. It's like always worst case scenario. In 2 seconds, he can run down 30 horrible scenarios that could happen. And it's really kind of fascinating to watch. But yet, when he's forced to stop, the other characters actually say to him, stop talking and just fix it. He then becomes so in the moment that, bam, okay, it's fixed, and every single scenario crisis he ran through does not come to fruition because he had to literally stop, forget all of those things, and go, what can I do right now? I can fix this. But he can't get out of his own head until somebody from the outside forces him to stop fretting and running through possible horrible scenarios.
Isn't that the case with most of us?
Yeah.
we constantly create all these worst case scenarios, and sometimes we create what we try to prevent again. You know, we're so worried about something happening, but then all of our thoughts and emotions that keep, attract into the circumstances that cause it to happen. And simply, if we looked at something a different way, and from a positive scenario or a positive outcome, as if it's already happened, then we attract those things into our lives. And it goes back to the Dr. Seuss story, because he was expecting to be an author, so he wasn't walking down the street and dodging people. I'm not going to happen. He was waiting for those opportunities. I don't know where the opportunity is going to come, but it's somewhere. And he was open to life, and boom, it walked right in and bumped right into him. And that's our desires and our dreams. They're out there. As soon as we think about them from the present moment, imagining what it would be like and feeling good about it, we start the process of we can attract that into our life. That's a new script for the movie of our life. And the only thing that's going to derail it is our own thoughts and emotions that pull us into a different room, and therefore we change the script of our own life movie.
So Kevin, how do people reach out to you? Where can they get the 3 rooms, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life?
The book is available on Amazon, just Kevin Murphy and the 3 Rooms, or they can look on the website www.the3rooms.com. It's the 3 THREE spelled out, and then be able to find lots of information there.
You should probably grab the domain with the number 3 there, just in case if it's available.
I do. I have them both. So,
okay.
So I should link them. Together.
Yeah. Just have the one forward. My web guy, Greg Schuler, he talks about that all the time. Most brilliant web guy I've ever met. I think his prices are way too low, but he's brilliant. So he talks about all those kind of things as well. Last thought, you'd like to take us down for the last few moments of the show.
Yeah, I think it's making things simple, and like I said at the beginning, everybody knows how important it is to monitor our thoughts, but we just don't do a very good job at it. And so it really can affect our whole lives. How we feel. We can determine how we feel, and we can feel good. And so be aware of your thoughts. And if it's something as simple as, which room are my thoughts in, then use that, because we all want to feel good. We all have the ability to feel good, regardless of what's going on. So connect to that, that awareness within us, and it makes life so much more enjoyable.
And the 3 rooms apply to every area of our lives. It's not just our personal lives, but it's our business lives, it's our financial lives, it's every aspect of our being, right?
Absolutely. It's from a business perspective. You can't be effective if you're constantly looking back. You can't be effective if you're always worrying about the future. You can only be effective by visualizing where you want to be as a company, as a business, and even relationships. Everything it has to do with all of our relationships. But all of our relationships, it always starts with the relationship with our own higher self first. In the present room, aligning with yourself, starting with that relationship, and then all of your other relationships will all work out.
And that's a perfect spot. We're about to go off the air. I want to thank you so much for being here. Everybody grab a copy of The 3 Rooms by Kevin Murphy. Remember, the right questions can change your life. So what do you ask today? Have a great day, everyone.
It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Stewart. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.